Hi, Judy from Bungalow Quilting and Yarn here, and we're going to make a zippy pouch today. But not just any zippy pouch, we're going to make a Valentine's zippy pouch. Now, I was playing around with this concept because it should follow that it would be a lot similar, very similar to a regular zippy pouch, but because a heart has a peak in it right here, it makes it a little more of a challenge. This is the first one I did, epic fail, right? So I played around and played around and played around until I got this one, and it turned out really, really nice. The thing that I like about it, I had to draw from my garment sewing experience. And in my garment sewing experience, we never leave a raw edge. No edge is ever left raw. So this zippy pouch is fully lined, and there are no raw edges inside the lining whatsoever. And I really like that. I like that feeling. It's also got some interfacing in it too, so it's a little bit more stable. And I want to fill it with candy and give it to people for Valentine's Day. And it's got a nice zipper. The zipper is nice and neat and tidy in it. And so because it was a prototype of many, I finally came upon the right way to do this by myself. And so I would like to share that with you. Now this pattern is going to be on my website. I will put it on there so that as a PDF download so that you can print it out for free. This is the back of it, just simple, made out of paper. This is the front. All right, so obviously you're going to cut two. So you're going to cut two of the front and two front lining. So you're going to need to cut a total of 4 of these. You can make the lining a different fabric than the outside, which is fun. Same with this, and I just decided though I was going to do it all with this Eiffel Tower fabric. It's really, really cute. So I've got 2 fronts and 2 front linings. Now I interfaced the front linings. I put the interfacing on the lining rather than on the front itself. And I interfaced one piece of the back. Okay, so we have a lining back, or I'm sorry, we have a heart back and a heart lining. We have 2 heart fronts and 2 heart front linings. Okay, and then the zipper has to go in the center. So I'm going to measure my zipper by just laying it on here. We're going to actually sew a seam in the center, and we're going to leave an opening and sew up a seam from the bottom and leave an opening for the zipper. So the zipper can be, it's an approximation. You don't have to be exact because you can always trim it down later. I'm going to trim it right to here, and it's a nylon zipper, and so I'm going to use a junk scissors, not a good sewing scissors, and I'm going to trim this zipper off right here. There's a way that you can save these zippers here and add another zipper tab to them, and then you get more use out of it, so you don't feel so bad if you're wasting this. But these zippers are only a couple of bucks, and really it's obviously you don't want to waste things, but I got another one here from the other thing that I did, and so you can add zipper tabs to those. So rest assured you'll be able to use those again if you can purchase those zipper tabs. We've got them here at the bungalow. Okay, so what I need to do then is I am taking the pieces that don't have interfacing in them, setting those aside, and I'm going to put these right sides together, and I'm going to sew. I'm going to sew a half-inch seam allowance from here to there, okay? And I'm going to do it to about right here, and I'll have that marked on the pattern too, so you can see there'll be a dot as to where to stop sewing, and you can mark that on your pattern. And I'm going to have it to right about here that we're going to sew to, and then we're going to back stitch. Okay, so now here we are, and I'm going to stitch a half-inch seam allowance. I'm not going to back stitch on where I start, but I'm definitely going to back stitch right here. And the reason you don't back stitch down at the bottom there where you start is you're probably going to trim some of that later. Okay, so I back stitched, stop, snip my threads, and come up here. And I'm going to start, I think, right about here. And back stitch, Now, you can see that I have back stitched here, sewn a 1/2 inch seam allowance, same thing here, so that when I open this out, I've got this little opening right here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the exact same thing with the lining pieces. And then I'm going to press it open. Okay, so now I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I stitched these down, back stitched, and then I pressed them open. So I've got this nice pressed open, and we don't need to worry about finishing off these edges because they're going to be contained inside. That's one thing you learn when you're sewing garments. Just, it's so much nicer to line things because they just turn out so much better. So here is my front lining, and here is my actual front. This is a one-way print, so be careful when you're cutting that you remember if you do have a one-way print that the print is going the right direction. So here is my other piece of my front. All right, that's my actual front, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch the zipper into the opening here. So the zipper will be actually like this. The opening will be like this around the zipper. Now we've got a bunch of extra here, but like I said, don't worry about that. We're going to trim that off. So there's no need to sew any type of placket or closure at the top of this zipper at all. As a matter of fact, you can probably, well, yeah, we're just going to sew a nice little box shape at the top here. We're going to push this up as far as it'll go. So okay, so we've got our tab right at the very top there. Got our tab right at the very top, and I'm going to pin this very securely. To this. And I might even consider hand basting, because actually what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to put the lining underneath there as well with the wrong sides facing up. And then I probably will hand baste so that it doesn't move at all when I'm sewing. So to clarify, I'm going to put this piece wrong sides up underneath here. And then we're going to stitch through all the thicknesses a nice box around that zipper. So I'm going to actually hand baste this into place, but I'm going to show you that this all has to be lined up. Line up now when you're working with a heart shape, all this is going to be bias edge. It's all going to be a bias edge, so that you're going to have some stretching. You won't have as much stretching with your lining piece because the lining piece has got the interfacing on it, but and it's a woven interfacing. I really like to use fusible woven interfacing because the woven interfacing just gives it so much more substance. So match that all up, and be careful not to stretch as you're matching it up, because then this will become longer on one edge than this, because this is all a bias edge here that you've cut. All right, so match that all up, and you can even put some pins in there. And then I'm going to take a needle and thread, and I'm going to hand baste around this whole thing. Okay, so now I've got this hand basted. It's hard to see, but I did use a double thread in my hand stitching needle and hand basted it so that I wouldn't have to have those pins in the way. And now I can just put my zipper foot on my machine and sew. But here's the back. Okay, so this is all hand basted in there nicely. All right, and we're going to go to the sewing machine and use the zipper foot and sew this in. Okay, so now we're going to clear this up a little bit, get that in one foot. There we go. So we're going to start here, and I'm going to back stitch just 1 or 2 stitches. Okay, and then I'm going to stitch down the side of the zipper tape. And right over my basting, I'll still be able to pull that out. Now when we get to the bottom here, we're going to make a square corner kind of thing. You can sew right over a nylon zipper. It'd still take it slowly though. And then up the other side. Now if you don't, you can always put your needle stop down and then pull your zipper tab down if that makes you feel better, so that you're not sewing around it. I don't usually have too much trouble sewing around it. Actually, there we go. Sometimes causes me more problems when I try to open it. There we go. So now I'm going to go to where I started, pivot again, go right across the top, back stitch a couple of stitches. Okay, so now my zipper is stitched into the, and then I'm going to rip out those basting stitches. So it's, now my zipper's stitched into my front of my heart zippy pouch. And I'm going to test it, make sure it works, and indeed it does. It's good. All right, so now we can rip out those basting stitches and work on the rest of it. Okay, now let's reorient everything. So here's the front with my zipper. Okay. Here's my back of the lining of my front, the back of the zipper. All right, and they're two separate pieces. See that? They come apart like this at the top. They come away from each other at the bottom as well. And that's important because we're going to stitch the the back of the heart now, the outside back to the outside front. Again, remember what I said about this being a bias edge? So we're going to pin this all the way around. Again, hand basting works too. That certainly is a page out of my garment sewing days. We hand basted a lot of stuff, but it really ensures success. You're going to save yourself a lot of time and trouble. You won't have to rip as often if you hand baste. And a lot of times if you're hand basting as opposed to pinning, you're noticing things, because it takes you a little longer, that you wouldn't have noticed had you just pinned it quickly. And then you're going to save yourself an awful lot of pain and of having to rip stuff out. So you'll see things, things will become a lot more obvious to you when you're hand basting. So I've just extolled the virtues of hand basting like my mother would have done. All right, so here we are. So you can see how that stretches. See that little bit? That's a bias edge. You got to be really careful of that. All right, so we're going to go all the way. We're going to pin it all the way around the heart. All the way around this heart. All right. And remember, we're keeping this separate. Keep it totally away from the lining. It's a separate piece. Keep it away from the lining. Don't sew anything together there. See, now this has gotten a little stretchy right in here. And you know the answer to that. Usually when you have something that's a little stretchy, or you're going to put that down by the feed dogs so that it pushes it through evenly. But this is the top part, and I don't really want to do that. So we're just going to have to be careful to feed that through. So I'm going to see how this is separate from the lining. There's the lining. Here's the front with the zipper. So this is what you're pinning. You're pinning the back of the heart to the front. That's all you're doing right here. And then we're going to go over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew that together. Okay, so here we are at the sewing machine, and I'm going to start, so remember these are separate. I'm going to start at the point, and I'm going to push this aside. I'm pushing the lining and everything aside underneath there. See that? I'm pushing it aside, keeping it separate. I'm going to start at the point of the heart. I'm going to put my needle in right at the point, do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm not going to backstitch that because I'm going to come right across and I'm going to come right up to it when I get done. So I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance around these curves, and I don't clip these curves. It just, when you clip something, it totally weakens it, completely weakens it. So the best thing to do is to get a smaller seam allowance so that when you do push those curves out, you don't have a squared off spot. You know how that is when you're sewing a curve and you push that out to the right side, you get that squared off look. I don't know if you've ever done like a Peter Pan color. Okay, so look at this. I want you to notice this. This is completely separate here. I've kept it away from the lining. Keeping it away from the lining. So let's see if I can get up above it a little bit. There we go. Okay, so here's the point of the heart right here. Right there is the point of the heart. And so I'm going to, when I get to that point, I'm going to pivot. Needle stop down, pivot, So I'm just sewing those two layers together, and I've kept that layer, other layer, the lining layer, completely separate. Oh, did I keep it separate? Look at how that's under. Yep, I did. Oh, it's underneath. You got to really be careful to keep that from getting pinched in there. Push that aside so it doesn't get pinched underneath there. It'll be really, really simple to have it, easy to have it get pinched in there. Okay, so now I'm coming up to this, and remember, there's my front and my back, and here's my lining and the zipper. I'm pushing that aside, pushing that under. It's kind of glary too. Okay, so I'm going to come up to it, come up to that point, and stop. And another back stitch, 1 or 2 stitches right there. All right. So to reiterate, we've got this lining, see this, completely separate. It's still completely and totally separate. And here are the front pieces sewn to the back. Front sewn to the back. Okay. Now, at this point, with that zipper tab, I'm going to pull that zipper open. You can do it from the back side. Okay, the zipper is now open. We want the zipper to be open. Now, when we stitch, clip these threads, keep your area neat. Now, when we stitch the back, here's the back lining to the lining. So we're just stitching the lining to the lining. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to keep the front completely separate. So we're going to pin this onto this, matching our points. And this shouldn't have stretched as much at all because of the fact that it was interfaced. And if you have to watch this multiple times before you do this, go ahead. It's a weird, it's not a hard concept. It's not hard to do this. It's just, oh, it's a bent pin. It's about 8 below 0 outside today. And so it's a good day to be inside. Even though the sun's shining, it's a really good day to be inside doing a project like this right before Valentine's Day. All right, here's the point. See how the point is right there? I'm keeping that point away from that zipper. I'm keeping it separate from the actual front piece. Oops, I love my pins. Pin all the way around. And then when you're done, you're going to have something really fun to, it's flat enough too, you can throw it in the mailbox and give it to somebody. Some candy or something in it. It would just be a large envelope, well, parcel probably, but it wouldn't cost a couple bucks to mail this to somebody. What a great surprise. Nobody gets good mail anymore. Everybody just gets bills and sends things via email. This can't be sent via email. So it's really special because it is not something somebody's going to get via email. Okay, so see where we sewed that seam? Okay, so that's where we're going to want to poke our needle into. And this is maybe stretched just a little bit. We're going to have to work it a little bit when we get to the sewing machine. Okay, so again, I'm going to start down here at the point, the bottom of the heart. And I'm going to do about 1/4 of an inch seam. Keep that lining away underneath there. Keep that away. Manipulate this a little bit. It's just a little pinch there. All right, I'm keeping this lining away. See that? I'm keeping it down under there, keeping it away, keeping it separate. I'm going to pivot when I get to that center point. slightly different because, like I said, you could send somebody a Happy Valentine's Day email, but this is really, really special because we spent a lot of time doing it, and I don't know if anybody ever appreciate the amount of time that you spent, but you will. You'll like what you did. Okay, so here's my lining underneath there. Again, I'm going to push that away. So now I'm coming to the end, the point. All right, so there's the point. Maybe I'll backstitch a couple times. All right. All right, so now here we are. I'm going to trim off where this point, see where I came to a point with my stitches? I'm going to trim that right to the edge there, just not clipping the threads at all. I'm going to get the rest of the zipper out of here. Well, use crummy scissors for that. Do not use a good scissors for that. Get that out of there because that's going to be lumpy. Okay, and then I'm going to trim right there. Okay, so now thread's hanging off of me. This where the heart comes to a point. I guess I'll clip it a little bit. I'm always hesitant to do that because I want to weaken the seam allowance. All right, so now what you have is you got, looks like 2 lobes, or kind of like 4. So this is the outside, remember, because we didn't interface the outside. And here is our lining. Oh, you know what we didn't do is we didn't leave an opening to turn right sides together. Aha! We've got our right sides out. So this piece right here, I'm going to open that. I'm going to take my seam ripper and I'm going to open that up. Okay, so I opened that little piece up. This is the lining. I made the opening in the lining, and the reason I made the opening in the lining is because that's on the inside. So when I go to hand stitch that closed, you're not going to see it. You could probably even machine stitch it closed. But this will allow you to turn it right sides out, and you won't have, this will be on the inside, so you won't see this. All your raw edges will be completely covered. So I'm going to turn this right sides out. The whole thing has to be, it has to give birth through that tiny little opening there. So we're going to push everything through that opening gently, carefully. Pull it through there. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have the wrong side out. You're going to have the lining side out. And then that's why the zipper is open, because you're going to push everything then through the zipper. Okay, so let's get it all out. All right. All right, so now it's out, but now we have to turn it because we've got the lining side out. And see that? That's where you're going to hand stitch that closed. You're going to hand stitch, you're going to just whip stitch that little bit closed right there on the side. I guess I'm kind of not in the picture very well. Okay, so you're going to, this was your opening that I went and ripped. So you're going to either machine stitch that closed or whip stitch it closed. But I'm going to show you what this looks like. Now we're going to turn it again through the zipper. Through the zipper, we're going to turn it right sides out. And it looks totally cute. This is so cute. And there's not a single raw edge inside. Not a single raw edge. It would really, it's cute enough to use for even just change inside your purse or for keys or anything like that. But if you're going to put something like this inside your purse, after a long period of time, you might want it laminated or something so it doesn't get all wrecked on the inside of your purse with ink and all kinds of things. So I'm pushing that lining up and in, pushing really hard, working it with my fingers, working that lining. Now I clipped that just a little bit, and that did, at that point of the peak of the heart, and it did work out pretty good. Now pushing the lining in, and I am going to go back, turn that part out that needs to be hand stitched. I'm going to do that, probably by machine because I'm lazy. But all right, so there's your zippy pouch. Isn't that cute? It is totally cute. Now you could fill it with candy, fill it with a gift card. No end to the things you could fill it with. Make sure you get all that hand basting stuff out of there. I've still got a few of those threads from the hand basting, but See how nice that zipper lays? It lays nice and flat. It works open and closed really easily. It is really, really a cute little zippy pouch. Same as this one right here. So now I've got two of them. I've got two cute little zippy pouches that I can use. Now this one, the zipper is up a little higher. I must have started it up a little higher. This one's down a little bit lower. Doesn't matter. It's either way, it works. It's cute. Put some candy in there, put a gift card in there. I like that. I think it looks really good. Let's see if I can focus that in a little bit better. Yeah, it turned out cute. And look at the Eiffel Towers are on both sides like that. Very cute. So get to the sewing machine and get going. Don't forget, you can buy all kinds of modern fabric with the fastest shipping ever from bungalowquilting.com.